We heard you. Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Nikki.
I bring this, I don't really need it. It's just more in case something goes on. Tell.
Always on.
We use this program called Whistle. That automated. 2 days before they come, so if they're coming for Friday. Remind them in
That's
case.
right, yeah.
And so that won't respond. All right, why don't we get started? I know Mika was going to be joining us, but we have a quorum. 1, 2, 3. So I am calling to order the EDC monthly meeting of September 1st. Start with additions or deletions to the agenda. We have one addition to the agenda, which is working group updates, which I forgot to add. Are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Nope. All right. Seeing that, oh, Joe is here, great. Seeing none, we can move on. Citizen comments. We have one non-EDC member citizen along with Nikki. Do you have any comments to make at the beginning?
Good evening, John.
Oh, you know, can you bring your chair up just because we won't normally
Yeah, there's a chair here. You can sit right here.
yeah, or no, come closer here because the mic is pointed to you here. That'll be better.
Perfect.
Is that good?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good
Who
evening.
is it? Who is it?
Yes, he's about to introduce. Oh, go ahead.
My name is Alan Fine. I'm a resident of the village, and I'm speaking on behalf both of village and town residents. I think you know how important pickleball has become to the community, and has been very successful at Vale Field with the rec center involvement. We're concerned about what's going to happen in the winter time when the courts are no longer available. At this point in time, the only courts that I think will be available will be the ones at the Woodstock Athletic Club, and many people can't afford that, can't afford the cost of the monthly dues and other costs that the athletic club imposes. And we were wondering, and I'm speaking for people in my club, I'm the chair of the club, whether or not the EDC would consider the possibility of a grant to try and locate a facility such as a school that might have a gymnasium where we could stripe pickleball lines and continue playing during the winter months.
Okay. So we have we have an annual grant process that might be partly in time for this request. Last year, we did it in March, which wouldn't particularly be in time, but the year before that, we did it in January. We have the ability to make grants not at that time with a 2/3 vote of the EDC. And so what I would suggest is that one of us, and I'm happy to do it, or what anyone else can volunteer, is to just work with you to put forward the kind of information that we would want, that we would typically want in the annual process. If you want to put it forward for October or for October, let's say, I think if you followed the application that we used last March, it would, that was what we expected then. I would think that would be what we would expect now. So I would just suggest you do that. We wouldn't, but may I just ask you one question? If there are any other people who have questions, are you looking for the cost of finding a place or painting it or paying membership for it or all of the above? Or
well, I think it would involve probably not painting. My guess is they're going to require striping.
Oh, sorry, I meant striping, whatever you're.
Tape, but and that would be fine. My concern probably is the larger cost than paying the facility will be paying for insurance. My guess is they'll require some form of insurance for personal liability in the event of an injury of a player, which could happen.
And okay, so all of this advice can be given offline by whichever EDC member wants to volunteer to work at this. I'll be the volunteer of last resort if no one does it. But one of the things that we will I imagine ask is, will the participants put in some money on their own, or is this 100% funded by the EDC? And obviously we
I
have
think we're open to,
Yeah.
you know,
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is any, I don't want to take too much time here, but let's just have, if there are a couple of questions and then we can work this offline unless anyone disagrees. Patrick?
I think typically too, what happens is you guys would do the research and come to us
Mhm.
with everything, and then we would then discuss it from there. So I wasn't sure whether you were wanting us to do the research or no, you guys would do the
I
research.
wasn't expecting that. No, we just were wondering if there might be grant money available.
Okay, I see.
Perfect.
Let me try to answer that specific question, which I won't give a yes or no answer to, because I think there isn't a yes or no answer, but I just want to say, are there any other comments or questions that anyone on the EDC would like to make? Ask Alan.
Nope. No.
Okay, so let me just put this in the context of the discussions we've had in the last few meetings, and actually the discussion that we're having tonight. We have agreed that the EDC should focus on 5 priority areas. I'll tell you what those are in a second, and big initiatives. This, without going into those details, is neither of those. It doesn't fit into the 5. It's housing, expanding housing capacity, expanding childcare capacity, marketing Woodstock, rejuvenating the downtown area, and supporting major events. We have also, I think pretty clearly that we want to, I don't want to speak for the whole group, because we're discussing tonight whether to also set aside a modest amount of money. We've talked in the past of a range of about $30,000 a year for things that are good for economic development, good for community development, but aren't those 5 things necessarily, and aren't big, because we don't want to completely cut off requests like yours and others similar to it.
Sure.
So that's sort of where we stand. It would not fit in. I think it clearly doesn't fit into our big priorities. We're going to discuss tonight whether and how and if to establish this other small fund. And I think we will, because I think we've all talked about, I think we're all in favor of some form of that.
Okay.
So my advice would be to sort of just check in with us, if you want to check in with me right after, tomorrow.
Sure.
And whatever process we talk about for doing these kinds of grants, you're welcome to be the first person to go through it, and
Okay.
we'll see how it
Happy
goes.
to
Yeah.
do cooperate, and we appreciate all that you can do for us, and
Yeah.
fill out whatever applications, forms you need, and we would do the research. We would try and locate the facility.
And figure out the cost.
We wouldn't expect you to do that.
Any
There are
other
a couple of
comments?
Comments in the chat. I can't.
I'm sorry, from Mika to everybody.
Oh,
Sorry.
no, sorry. That
We're
was
just
actually
saying hi
me.
to each other.
No, that was me and Todd. We probably should have been
Oh, sorry.
separate.
Yeah.
Don't-
No,
don't
it's
mind
not
us.
public, just chatting.
All right, any other
Nope.
comments, questions? All right, Alan, thanks.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming forward. Yep.
Thanks, Al.
You
Appreciate it.
have my email address. I do this, sir. Okay.
Thank you, Al.
Sorry, I should ask, sorry, is there anyone else who would like, who's a pickleball player? I'm a tennis player, so I will put my anti-pickleball bias aside, if I'm the one to help. Is there anyone else who feels like enthusiastic?
I want to play pickleball.
All right, Alan, I'll you send the email to me. Yeah, I'll be the contact. Okay. All right. Are there any other citizen comments? No? Hearing none. Okay. Approval of the minutes. We didn't approve the minutes last time, so we have minutes are posted on the website from meeting of July 21st and also August 4th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Sorry, Patrick made it right before you. Todd, will you second it?
Do.
I'll second it, or someone.
All right, Todd has seconded it. All in favor, sorry, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Okay, working group updates. Not every working group may have an update, but I know that several do, and the housing working group has asked to go first. And Jill is going to, Patrick is going to, and then Jill.
Okay. So the housing group has made progress on the 2 housing programs so far. They've got 2 people set up now. Tisha Buss, they've signed the promissory note and they're on their way. And Sean and Anna Byrne, their application for funding, we're going to talk about tonight. But they've now since got the part of the state funding, and then they're doing our program as well. The rental incentive, they've received 2 applications. Hannah Abrams of 1906 South Road, and one other application that unfortunately is ineligible because they're in Bridgewater. But we can see the program has merit. People are looking at it. Trina has addressed inquiries from potential tenants, local firemen, police, elementary school teachers looking for homes in Woodstock, to potential landlord inquiries regarding qualified tenant requirements. The focus for the past month has been to get word out. They've had articles in the Standard, VT Digger, Valley News, and a very exciting interview with Trina on WPTZ, NBC5, which was pretty cool. Trina's met with Sherry at the Thompson Senior Center regarding the home share program, and they'll be promoting it on the website, on the home working group website in future communications. And then the next application deadline is September 16th. So if anybody knows anybody who might be interested, pass the word around.
That's for the rental incentive.
That's for both, right, Jill?
Yes, both.
For both programs. So for the rental and the ADU. That's it. And then Jill wants to talk about the Sean and Ann Byrne ADU.
Jill, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to share screen.
Yeah, you're enabled.
Okay, so this is the property. It's on West Woodstock Road, and Anna and Sean have a room behind the garage that right now has a small bathroom and a bedroom. In order to make it into an ADU, they need to make the bathroom have a shower and then put a small kitchen area in. That would bring them up to fire and safety inspection code regulations. They have a contractor ready to do the work, and they are agreeing to rent it to a qualified tenant who meets all of our requirements for local workforce. They're also going to apply to the state program called VHIP, which will provide more money to make this perfectly possible for them to do. I have the application if you want to see that it's been completely filled out, but they're approved by the Housing Group Fund Committee, who've been through all the rigor of this, so that we can ask you to approve this for funding. Do you have any questions?
Great.
Any questions online or here? No, Jill, I have one quick question. Is this the same state program that Tessa?
It
Is it
is.
Tesha
Yes.
or Tessa?
Tessa.
Is that Tessa applied to?
Yes, it is.
Yes. So that's sort of interesting, and yeah, that's interesting, and it suggests possibly a more formal linkage at some point in the future, if you know, certainly a cross referral program. Maybe
We're creating the interest, and then we're making sure everybody knows about the state program.
I see. So we're the ones that are doing it because it's local.
We're becoming the source of information to make all these things happen.
And the state program is actually tougher in the sense than ours, and their requirements are longer and stronger requirements than we have.
Interesting. Okay.
Really great. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, I think this is terrific. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this $10,000? I didn't catch that part.
$10,000. So we need you to make a formal motion to approve the grant of $10,000 for Sean and Anna Byrne to create an ADU at 3588 West Woodstock Road.
I think someone on the EDC technically has to make that motion. So could someone just adopt the words that Jill just said?
I adopt words that Jill
Okay.
just said.
Patrick does. All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
I second it.
Matt,
All second the motion. Good
Arian seconds it. Is there any discussion, any further discussion? No? All right. All in
Other
favor?
than to say, well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, all in
That's
favor?
100%.
Aye.
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 Great job. Keep it up.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations. That's
much.
terrific.
Congratulations. Thank you
Great
so
work,
much
Jill.
for your hard work, all of
Right.
you.
Great
And the
job.
whole team. Yeah, it's all working out. It's exciting.
Could we get a copy, a link to the WPTZ interview so we can post it on the website?
Yeah, I sent it actually to
Oh.
Jill and her team, so I will
You should just send
take
it-
it out of my email and send it to you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. That's great. Okay, are there any other, Todd, do you want to give a quick update on childcare? You
Yeah.
don't have to, but
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't, yeah, for sure. We've been, we had the meetings, a lot of folks attended, we had 18 or 20 folks. We're all working really hard behind the scenes. It's a difficult prospect because it's such a heated, livid, live rolling situation. So, Larry's got 10 email chains, I have 10 email chains, Mika has 10 email chains, and we're trying to correlate this information. But I can say right now, the survey we put out, we have 83 current respondents. I'm going to try to really get it to 100 because that sounds cool. But we're really seeing a lot of patterns. I'm going to share it with folks soon. Anyone who wants it can ask me, and I'm happy to give it to them. It's not presented in the way that I might present it in an official way. But the data is fascinating. There is an economic link. It's clear. I think we all knew that was probably the case, in my opinion. So I look forward to sharing that with the full EDC. But there's a crisis, and we need to do our best to immediately get some of these children into some sort of facility so that the family can be alleviated of the stress, mental anguish and anxiety. What I'm seeing is, half a dozen people saying they might move out of town. And I don't think it's lip service. It's interesting. Like I feel their pain, and I feel like they just coming out of COVID, they can't take another thing going south. And it's just, this is another thing. And you're talking about moms and single parents and dads out there that they're just at the breaking point. So I know that we're going to continue to work hard, and thank you to everybody that's working on this together. It is a huge team effort, especially, like I said, behind the scenes. And we're going to hope to have something to present sooner than later. But yeah, we're working really hard. And if we can be half as successful as the housing group just was, we'll have something to smile about. So that's the quick update from that.
Todd, can I just ask, you've given me sort of snippets of information, which I appreciate, and it's great. There's one snippet that I thought would be useful to repeat without kind of interrupting your work, which is that from the survey, from the 83 people, it seems like you've found two insights. One is that, I don't want to get this wrong, but that the almost entire unmet demand is in one age group.
Correct. A younger group of people. So we're talking about people that have a young child at birth through, Larry, what is it? Through 3 or up to 3? They're not 3 years old yet. That up to 3.
I think it's up to 3 years old.
Up
Yeah.
to 3. That's the majority of the unmet need. And if you think about that, bringing a new mini person into the world and all that entails, it's incredibly taxing. But yeah, that's what the data is showing. It's mostly the people that are just having the child that are having the biggest issue, and really, it's just a real sad situation.
And the other snippet that I thought was critical, and by the way, I think this was a really important question to factually answer, both what is the age group or groups where there's unmet demand, and the second is what the size of it is. And I think you said something like it's in the range of 20 to 25 people.
Yeah, it's hitting about 20 people, and it's more than I thought. It's not something I think one facility could absorb. So we're going to really have to continue to work with the providers. Meetings are set up, as you know. We're coming at this from a lot of different angles, and we need to do something for these folks. And I think we'll find something and make it happen. But it's certainly not without its challenges. Yeah, a lot of kids, a lot of families.
Okay, thank you, and thanks to the group for all of
I
that.
think also, can I just say one thing there? The work on this project has really, for me, I mean, not that this was ever a question, it has never been a question, but if you needed empirical data that would show how important it is to also be working on housing, for instance, then I feel like this is pointing directly at that, whether it's for it's, in my mind, it's primarily for staff, you know, I mean, it's hard to find staff members for the childcare centers, and it's hard for those staff members to find a place to live. And so I feel like all of these things are directly linked, and it just feels really good to know that the EDC is working so hard and that this housing group is working so hard to try and find solutions. And I feel like all of these things coming together will just bring a lot of relief to a lot of people. So it just feels good.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Mika. Okay, marketing. You want to talk about marketing?
Yep. We're well on the way for the September and winter, well, I should say fall and winter workflows and building the rest of that part of the system in place. Interestingly, I did a quick little review of July and August of 2021 of website traffic versus 2022. And given the fact that 2021, we had crazy amounts of people here, we're actually getting more traffic to the website because of the program we're doing in 2022 than we are in 2021. So what we're doing is working, and it's being quite effective, and it's building our list to be able to remarket to people. So I just want everyone to know that, you know, there are definitely positive results that we can look to with what we're doing. So that's that part. And then the other part is, John, did you post this yet?
No.
Okay, don't yet, because I got to
Okay.
fix one thing. The results are looking great. We have a 46.2% open rate on emails. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. And our click-through rates, 10.6%, which is also miles above the average. So everything is working really well. The most popular posts last month were Taste of Woodstock, no surprise there. And we're getting a lot of really great feedback on the stuff that we're doing. So just that's the quick and dirty update on that. And the results thing will be on the website after I fix a few things. That's it.
I'm trying to remember at the conference board, but I think we had like open rates of like 6% or 7%, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that wasn't bad. That was
That's good.
actually probably better than average, right?
Yeah, we're
Off the
crazy.
charts, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm one of the things I'm doing right now is I'm going to be creating for next month a whole new analytics page to look at, an overview will be much more clear and a little easier to see than what we've been doing, so people can see how the results are and be able to track. And I want to have it so that it actually tracks previous month to the current month, so that we can see the progression.
Great. Okay, any comments or questions?
I have one quick thing that I don't think it has to do with the data, which is awesome. But when I go to the EDC website, the counter goes up, even if I just refresh and go back.
Yeah, but it knows it's you.
It knows it's me, right?
No,
Yeah.
no. We're talking about a different website. You're talking about the EDC website.
Yeah, the EDC website. The counter always goes up. Like
Okay,
I go on there sometimes and hit refresh like 9,000 times so that John feels good.
Yeah,
You know.
I'm doing that I go on every day. My kids, that's how they get their allowance.
Yeah. That's really good stuff, Patrick.
Good.
I'll just a quick update on the downtown revitalization group has met.
My grants manager.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm going to let them come and report next month. I thought so. We also have the grants manager, which is not a working group, but is really sort of a working group. Basically, it's just not. It is a working group.
Where's
right? Okay,
we
so
have
will you report on the grants
a
manager?
group of four.
Yeah, that's true. You have a group.
We have a group.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Allison has gotten everything up on the website. People are starting to apply to the different applications. One for people who are looking for a grant, one for people who have a grant and need help. Allison is actually away on vacation the last 2 weeks, but she is following up with everything. There was a great little article, I don't know if anyone caught it, in the Standard about the grants manager. It was great. If anybody didn't see it, I saved it and I can send it to you. But we're well on the way of doing this, and we've reached out to several different groups, including the housing group, for applications, and I'll have more to talk about it next meeting when we'll have a sense of what grants are being sought after and so forth. But also keep an eye on the EDC website, the grants manager page, because we're posting grants that are up there. And we're also putting grants that are available on the listserv on a regular basis, just to keep it in front of people so they know that this is out there and that they can do it. And if you guys can spread the word, that would be great too. All right, that's it.
Okay, thank you. That's great.
I'm just gonna say out loud, sorry, in case you're not monitoring the chat. I think if there are articles that are happening, about housing or marketing or grants or whatever, shouldn't those all go up on our EDC website, or do they already?
They do not, they should. I just made a note to try to do that, but I actually think that it's time for us to restructure a little bit the website. We have, I think now, a very clear and coherent set of initiatives around the working groups. The website isn't set up that way. It should be. All the stuff that we have on the site, we can kind of put in a historical section and say, you can refer to it here. But the website really should be focused on our 5 main priorities, plus the grants manager and so forth. Is there anyone who's interested in really sort of helping to redesign it? Oh, Patrick. But you're doing a lot. Well, I know that you do this, but is there someone else who wants to work with Patrick?
I don't, but I'm happy to I don't, but I'm happy to, help fund it.
No, I don't think there's any funding. It's just a design. It's just a conceptual design, really.
If Patrick doesn't have time, we can hire Sam to do it. He's cheap.
I have my own team. The TEDx website that's up. Deborah needed help in my group.
Yeah, if you can do it, that's great. This
is what I do. So
but just to be clear, what I'm thinking is, at a minimum, it'd be nice to make it look differently. But to be honest, I don't think, personally, for that function of that site, I don't think it matters. What I think matters is the architecture, basically the
org chart of it.
Yeah, the org chart, right? So that people immediately know this is the meeting and this is the working group and this is the videos, whatever.
What is that site done?
Wix. I can implement whatever structure you've got, basically. Okay. But if the two of you want to work on it, that would be great.
Because my assistant is also
a Wix person.
She's an everything person.
Right, fine. Okay.
Wix, Squarespace, a WordPress.
Awesome.
She's my.
It's really the navigation. It's like how should it be organized? What should be on the homepage? Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It should look nice too. I'll just say.
Yeah, Patrick will make it look nice. He knows.
Okay, that's fine.
There should be a John joke section. Listserv doozies.
Top 10. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me just go back to the agenda. All right. So I thought what we would try to do tonight is to finish up, if we could, the remaining parts of of the proposal that I put forward to sort of set priorities and make, which included the big priorities, which we've done. We have to get it approved by the select board, or at least ratified, I guess, by the select board, because I think we owe that to them. But the other parts of this were a grants manager, other possible parts were a grant manager. We approved that for 1 year. A loan fund to businesses and a process for handling smaller grants, what I was calling the community loan fund. Let's talk about these two, whether we want to do them, and if we want to do them, how we want to do them, and see if we can get it resolved so that we can go to the select board and say, okay, here's how we would describe what the EDC does. We do, if we adopt these, and we may not, but if we adopt these, we would be saying it's pretty straightforward. We focus on big initiatives in 5 areas, boom, 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 boom. We also have a loan fund to support local businesses for anything that would meet these criteria, whatever those are. And we want to support the community through a community loan fund that is of this size and run this way.
Or.
I'm sorry, a community grant, sorry, a community grant program that has these characteristics. And we may not have those last two things. We have the, we have what came before that. So let's start with the loan fund. Just to quickly share, let me see.
I say, John, did you have you had a chance to do anything on the research on the loan fund?
Yeah, well, so I'm gonna, so Larry and I have been working on this. Larry, tell me if I'm gonna say this wrong, but the easiest thing to show you actually is a Vermont municipality revolving loan fund, which is in existence.
There's a structure that exists we can just jump into.
And we can, right. So this is the Bradford, Vermont revolving loan fund. And the web page of it is basically this. Included on this web page below this, I didn't want to get too small, are links to the application form and the criteria and so forth. But basically, I'll just read the parts in yellow. The revolving loan fund loans the purpose is to make loans to Bradford-based businesses that have the potential to increase employment within the town, to grow Bradford-based businesses, and to improve the general welfare of the town using generally accepted principles of sound banking. The RLF shall also provide loans for facade improvements for businesses located in the central business district. So it's pretty close. I personally would take out to improve the general welfare, but I'd be okay. I would vote for it even if it was left in. Actually, I might not even take it out. I guess I probably would leave it in because I think the smaller things that we get, like the fireworks or something, is probably more improving the general welfare than it is growing
Fireworks
businesses.
wouldn't be a loan, right?
No, sorry. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm mixing up the community.
Yeah,
fund.
I'm
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably take out for the loan fund. I would use that phrase with the community grant program.
Right.
I'd be comfortable with that phrase, but I would take it out of the revolving loan fund. I think that there's a benefit to having something that's focused on existing businesses, but one that is also respectful of the fact that I think a majority of people, though not everyone, is opposed to just giving lots of money directly to businesses. And this is kind of trying to thread the needle. Anyway, I think what we should discuss tonight, because of the existence of this, and we have not yet gotten legal advice, but we are in contact at least with lawyers who could give us that advice. They haven't agreed to do anything yet, but this is an ongoing program right now. So I think it's not a waste of our time to say, let's assume for tonight it's legal. Do we want to do something? And if so, what do we want to do? Would we want to model it precisely against this? Would we want to adjust it? What's our feeling about a revolving loan fund? Joe.
Personally, I think I would need, and I'm sure you probably have meandered down this path already, but I would need quite a bit more information of what would be involved with the whole issue. I mean, it's something I have to give a lot of thought and I think I need more things to think about than what I've seen so far. In terms, I mean, we have already granted what, $5,000 towards legal advice about establishing a loan fund, have we not?
Yes. Yeah. We haven't spent that yet. So because but we were until we found this intending to spend that, and we may still. So I think we will be able to determine. We'll be able to determine whether it's legal or not, and how we would have to operate it.
Yeah.
Between them.
John,
I think that's what I would personally require before I could vote on anything is more information about how it's set up. And if we want to use the program that's going on in Bradford, fine, as a template and as an example of how things work regarding revolving loan fund, yeah, that'd be good. But I just need to think about more things to think about before I could really even consider voting or commenting on it further.
Larry and then Todd.
Oh, I was just gonna say that as far as the legal opinion is concerned, I contacted Joe Swanson to see if the select board had an idea of who would be appropriate to ask the question, because the town does do a lot of ask for a lot of legal opinions, and a request for an opinion has been issued to the town's attorney, Paul Gillis, up in Montpelier, but he has not responded. What was it, about a week ago, I guess. So it's not like we're not trying to get legal opinions. John found this Bradford thing, and I think a good idea there is we'll pursue Bradford and find out if they got a legal opinion, and that might short circuit that problem. But I would concur perhaps with what Joe is saying, is that at some point we need a legal decision, a legal opinion to rely on in case the question ever comes up.
And how it's set up, and in looking at Bradford and how they do it, and how long have they been doing it? Do they have a track record that can be looked at, and we can say, well, that looks good, or not. But yeah, and personally, I would need a lot more information than we have right now.
Todd,
I think on a spiritual level, I've been thinking a lot about last year and, the money we spent and where it went. And I feel good about a lot of it, and some of it I have regrets on, to be honest, as my personal voting record. But I think that this could bridge the gap in where some folks, I think, could get the money they might need, where it might otherwise be uncomfortable for someone like me in a particular situation to vote yes on. It would show me that they have skin in the game in a way that doesn't economically disadvantage them, but it also has a feature of repayment, which I think is important for entrepreneurship in general. So I agree with Joe that we need to understand the terms and the conditions and all that. And I know you'll bring that forward, but just on a base approach, I'm really in favor of this, because some of those things that people have that are okay ideas that I'm not really sure how it fits the mission, or if it's really going to advance economic development, you can lean this way, knowing that there was at least some semblance of repayment and paying it forward, and so on and so forth. So that's my spiel on this, but I'm in favor of it in general.
Marion.
Yeah, I mean, I have questions, and maybe they're premature, but just stuff to think about. I'm also in favor of the idea. The things I'm wondering about are, have we thought about how it would be administered or managed, and whether that might add a cost that we haven't factored in when we think about, the money sort of just, cycling through. And then also, have we thought about whether it's a zero interest or a low interest, or, how we're structuring it that way? And then the last question is just, I would add to the, if you go back to Bradford to ask about whether they got a legal opinion, also, I'm sure you would anyway, but to ask them about, what the experience was like. Did a lot of people take advantage of it? And just how
The track record.
yeah,
history.
yeah.
Right.
And also pitfalls,
Yep. Other questions or comments? Patrick.
I'm, as like Todd said, I'm in favor of this as an idea. And I think if we just flush out what the details are, and if we have a template that we can use with Bradford, that helps, that'll help us, shortchange the amount of work we maybe would have had to have done.
Right.
So I think just let's get the history on Bradford, and if there's a legal opinion to be had, whether it's they have one or if we get one, I think we should move forward.
Other comments, Larry?
Well, yeah, I like the concept, I think, of making a loan. But I think the devil's in the details, and I'm really concerned about, who do we say no to? Why do we say no to somebody who comes in for a business that comes in for a loan? And or put it on the other way, that what are the criteria that we're going to use Do they differ from the criteria we use for grants? And would we give these people a grant? And if not, where's the line there? I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. I'm just saying that I think it's going to take some real good thought, and I think we run the risk if we jump into it. I think we run the risk of some getting some negative impressions, because I think a lot of businesses are out there that would love nothing more than a loan from the EDC, and I think we need to be upfront in setting our criteria so that we don't get expectations out there and then find ourselves in a bit of a philosophical pickle, because so yes, it'd be good to have a loan program, but I think we've got a lot of work to do.
Great.
That's fine.
I'll insert my voice just as the sole person that hasn't inserted a voice. Although I have basically, I agree with everything that everybody has said. The only thing I would add is that I think that a loan fund is something that I know that the EDC has been talking about for a very, very, very long time. And I've been in favor of it from the beginning. I think that a lot of, as Todd said, a lot of opportunities that we're not 100% sure what to do with. We're not 100% sure that it qualifies for taxpayer grant funds. But we do think it's a good opportunity. It is economic development. We do think that these people deserve a shot, whoever that person is in the moment. And what Larry said, yes, of course, there needs to be, criteria set so that we're not spending money the same way that we do with our grants. With our grants, right? Like, you have to make sure that it's smart money spent, but thank you. But I do think that it is a really important opportunity, actually, for a lot of people to try and, getting a business started is hard, as many of you know, and you need as many opportunities for funding as you can possibly get. And so if we can be that stepping stone for somebody, I think we would be remiss not to be.
Okay, so it sounds like, okay, what I wanted to accomplish tonight has basically, what I was hoping to accomplish has just been accomplished, which is, if we were going to not support the idea of a loan fund, I wanted it to come out tonight, so that what we didn't do is spend 4 months answering all the questions that you've all said, and then find out that people were opposed to it. And the way they were saying their opposition tonight was, well, I would like to know what the track record is, and I would like to know what the interest rates are, and so forth. And then we find out that it's doable and that the interest rates are low, and they say, well, I really don't like the idea. It sounds to me as if that's not what we think. It's just that we have a lot more work to do. We're at the beginning, not near the end. And it's possible that when we find out what the track record is, we find out what how much it costs to do the operations, or whatever, we may say, you know what, we all like the idea, but we shouldn't do it. And that's fine. But we in principle would like to do it if it's a workable idea, and if there seems to be a track record, and to Larry's point, if we can come up with a set of criteria that we're comfortable with. So, okay. I think that's where we stand currently, and then we'll keep working on those other issues. So,
Well,
Larry,
John, let me ask, can I ask, moving forward, how are we going to move forward? I mean,
Yeah.
how are we going to obtain some of the information that all of us would like to see before we decide what we want to do about it?
well, Larry and I somehow have gravitated to this issue, and I think the next step. So Larry and I would work on it. If anyone else wants to join us, that would be great. And I would say, Larry.
I'll hop on that one. I like that one.
Okay.
If you need help.
Well, I think the next step, I would think one thing that I would be excited about doing is just having a meeting with Bradford and just asking them all these questions.
I think that's a good idea. I don't, do they have anything laid out? Or do they have something that describes what their history has been, what their track record?
In the chat.
Yeah, I'm going to, hold on one second.
Okay.
Well, yeah, hold on.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I hope.
Joe, he's going to share the website link in the chat so that you can grab the.
But I'm also going to actually put it up on the screen, because
And put it up on
just to show you for 1 second. So here's if you just search Bradford, Vermont revolving loan fund, but it's in the chat. But let me just share let me share the website. So this is the town of Bradford's municipal website. And, oh, sorry, wait a minute. Oh yeah, there it is. And that this is the part, you just saw this paragraph up here. The applications go to the town clerk. So it's clearly part of the municipality, but here's the good part. Here's the loan application for 2022. And they've been doing this since 16. It's about 4 pages long. It's got
Been doing
enough.
this Since when, John?
I'm sorry.
2016.
Okay.
So they presumably have data. They have a track record. I have no idea if it's what it is, but they have one.
Yeah.
It's a detailed enough application to give us, to make me think that they're making decisions based on real information. But it's also simple enough application that, you know, it's really that it suggests to me that they, you know, made some trade-offs between completeness and feasibility, you know, just
Right.
legit, you know, making accessibility, right? So I think that not only is that front page of the website simple and clear to me, but they've got some next level. So, you know, things that look
So
simple
it
and clear.
seems to me, John, that we have 2 steps ahead of us. 1, get a legal opinion, and 2, meet with the people in Bradford and have a discussion with them.
And I would do the second one first, because my guess is that they have had a legal opinion.
I'm sure it did, sure.
Yeah,
That's
and-
probably right.
We might be able to piggyback on that if for some, anyway, we will make sure that this, you know.
Yeah.
There's 2 things there that either it's legal or the town of Bradford is quite publicly and for 6 years doing something illegal. Those are the only 2 options.
The third
And
thing,
if they're doing it for 6 years, they must be doing something successfully.
They must be doing something right.
Yeah.
All right.
the third
I'd
thing we
like
have
to-
to do is, we have to download all those forms and where it's Bradford, we have to put Woodstock.
Right.
This may, perhaps doesn't need to be said, but I would like to know that we are funding people who might otherwise have a hard time getting funding from other
Now,
people.
that's gotta be all part of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. So just saying that out loud.
Okay, the second, thank you for that feedback. I think that gives us something to continue on. And Joe, thank you for volunteering for that. The last piece of the proposed puzzle anyway, for what should the EDC be doing, is the community, wasn't there a name for it? Community fund. Maybe it was the community
I think we
fund.
just call it the community fund.
Okay.
And it's your
John's
presentation, John.
Yeah, right. It is my presentation.
Unbelievable.
We got one for the John page.
Why don't I, oh. Yeah, okay.
John's tracksuits clouding his mind.
There's really not. I think, let me just say by exception, does anyone, forgetting about how we do it? Because I think, is there anyone who thinks we should not set aside a pot of money every year to a community fund, which would make grants, whether whoever makes them, with us or someone else or whatever, or both, a pot of money that's modest, but enough, and I'll ask you a question in a minute about the number, to fund things that would meet the broad criteria of economic and community development, but are either not big or not in one of our 5 areas, or possible, or both. Is there anyone who's opposed to having those funds used in that way? No, okay,
I'd have personally, I'd have to have a condition, and the condition would be the process that you suggested, John, a while back, about having a separate committee, whether it be totally EDC members or partially EDC members, who would process the grant request and then bring it to us after they
I think we
process it with their recommendation.
okay, so you're saying you would only want to do it in some circumstances, is what you're
That's
saying?
right.
But you're not opposed to the money being used that way, if we can find a way that you would agree with to do it,
Yes.
which
that's
may not be
correct.
able to, but we'll see what the group, okay. And let me just, before we talk about the how, which I think is the third question. I think it's the one on which we would, there's lots of ideas, and I don't know that there's any consensus. But we actually did take a survey of EDC members once. Most people answered, but not everyone. The range of answers was 10 to 15%. I think almost all of them were 10 or 15%.
It was 30,000. I think it was 30,000.
I've used,
30,000.
well, I've used the number 30,000 because that's 10%, and I wanted to make it a
That's
little.
what we said. It was 30,000. We all
Yeah,
said.
that's
All right, so we
exactly
agree,
the
okay.
number I remember.
All right, fine. So is there anyone who disagrees, who thinks that the number should be significantly different from 30,000?
Could I just
Marion.
ask a question? Do we have any idea, based on the grants we gave last year, roughly how much went to the kinds of things that would, I mean, is that about 30,000? Do we know?
Well, okay, if what we want to do are these 5 areas and big,
Right,
then 2/3 of our money went to these kinds of things. Because the only thing that we had was big, was the marketing.
but we had some, I mean, like we did give a significant amount to some of the events, which probably wouldn't fall under this. So I'm thinking the kinds of things we talked about, like fireworks and.
Okay, well,
Flower pots.
yeah,
Fireworks wouldn't be
Swords.
alone, even though I wish it would be.
well, okay, I just want to clarify something to answer your question.
Yeah,
If there are 2 buckets, the priorities and everything else, the priorities are not, we have agreed, although it's hard to do, that the priorities are 2-dimensional. The first dimension is what are they? And the second dimension is how big are they?
right.
We gave one big grant, what I would consider to be one big grant last year for $100,000. The other $200,000 we granted, by my definition, were all small.
Right.
Which means they fall into this category.
Got it.
Now, what the second biggest grant,
That's
the
not-
second biggest grant we gave was for $39,000 to Vale Field
And 20 to TEDx.
and 25 to TEDx.
Yeah.
I think those are smallish, but anyway, so 100,000, 40,000, maybe 25,000. So way more than 30,000 were to things that weren't those 5
Right,
and big.
Well, I would disagree with you there, because I think
Okay.
TEDx fits into the,
Correct. So half,
marketing,
take TEDx out.
fine, so half, so 140 and 165 out of 303. So more than 30,000, well more than 30,000 went to small, either things that were not the 5 or small.
John, may I ask a question at this
Yeah.
point?
Go ahead.
It escapes me, because I don't have the kind of memory that can remember every single grant that we granted last year, but.
None
what
of us
is-
do, Joe.
Is it possible that some of those could have fallen into one of the 3 categories?
yes.
You mean one of the 5?
5 categories?
Oh, absolutely. I think a number of them fell into the 5 categories. They just weren't big. My point is,
Yeah, right, they weren't big, but they would have fallen into that category, correct?
Right.
Right.
I'm trying to hold our feet to the fire. It may not be possible and we may not want to, but and maybe we shouldn't. But
John, can I interject for a second?
yeah, go ahead, Todd.
I think just to focus here on what we're saying, Marion, I'm with you. It's hard to differentiate. I can't really go back and say what I would have done differently if this was available. I only know that I would have done things differently, if that makes sense for me. But what these are going to be for, is my understanding, is that things that don't fit into our big priorities that we think are great ideas, but that aren't filling the grant bucket, even for the grants that we might give in the small community section, like fireworks. So fireworks is a great example. You know how I feel about fireworks. They're not borrowing money from us for fireworks. We're gonna have to give them the money.
We're not talking about the loans anymore. We're in the.
Yeah, no, he's talking about grants.
Oh, I thought he was talking.
I'm
Okay.
going back and forth. Sorry, I'm
Okay.
going back and forth to grants and loans.
Sorry.
So to differentiate, I think that the loan fund versus the grants, I think the $30,000 was for other stuff. So whatever we want to put that other stuff in, I think is up for a great debate. And so is the number, of course. I could go north, I could go south, but I think that we had talked about $30,000 being things that aren't in the big priority, big requests bucket. if
And I
that,
also, you're right, Todd, I agree with that, but, and I also, if I remember correctly, these grant applications would be out of the normal time frame that we would grant the big ones. You know what I'm saying?
not
In other words, someone
necessarily.
can come in the middle of April and say, I want $5,000 for da. Instead of going through the process and.
they
and
could be, but they don't
that's-
have to be, right? Is
What?
that how he said it? I mean,
But
Yeah,
no,
I think it was like something that popped up that we thought was worth looking at, in April.
we haven't decided, that was, I proposed some
remember that.
aspects of how we should do that, but we decided on none of it.
Right.
So it's not, it could be that, it could be anything we define, but to answer Marion's question, I think you're trying to ask, how much of a change would there be if we had this structure? The answer is enormous.
Yeah.
And the establishing a community fund, no matter what the timing is or who the group is that approves it, and setting a dollar value of anything close to 30,000 is going to have the following major effect. The main thing it's going to do is it's going to say to the working groups, if you don't come up with big proposals, the EDC is going to be doing nothing.
Right.
That's not technically true. We'll be doing a tiny little set of grants, 1/10 of what we've been giving. To me, the biggest benefit of the community fund is to force the working groups to do something that will make a difference. It may be the housing working group saying, we've got the ADU thing. We want $400,000 to create 40 units, and we want $100,000 a year for the next thing. And it's Patrick basically saying, we want this 150,000. We want to increase it to 150, and we want it for 3 years. And it's TEDx saying, okay, next year we're going to do this. It's going to be on NBC, and we need $250,000 of funding. And creating this community loan fund, no matter how it is, as long as it's in the range of 30, it might be 50, it might be 28. And we might do it, it might be in April, as Joe said, or it might be annual. If we do that, we're doing that as the last step in the discipline of saying, we now have to really work on big things. Because otherwise the community is going to say, what are you doing with your money?
yeah, we can't rip the rug out right away in one fell sweep. We have to be respectful of the things that people have done in the past, respectful of people who still come in and really need these small grants, even if it's not something that we want to be doing. We need to lead the system.
I even think for 10%, by the way, while this is happening, the money that we're getting is going up. We just got our August number. We were in 2019, we had 300,000 of revenue. That was the last full normal year, 298,000. We were forecasting this year in 2022 to be at 350. We're now forecasting 365. We're 22% ahead of 2019 year to date with 3 payments out of 4 in. And the third one was 22% ahead. So we've stabilized at about 22%. That will, so 360. So, and if you remember, maybe prior to many of you being on the EDC, but the main complaint in the first 3 or 4 years of the EDC was you're not spending your money, right? And so we started spending our money, which is good, but we've been spending it on, so now we're spending our money, but we're spending it on a range of things that are small. And now the next era of development is we're going to still spend our money, hopefully, but we wanted to do it on a more focused set of things and big. If we establish this community fund, again, however it's managed, we're going to really need to have big proposals and do them. And my instinct, by the way, is that we're not really going to be ready to do that in January. That in January, we're going to have one big proposal that's really well developed and so forth, because they've been working on it for a year, which is the marketing group. I don't know if the housing group will be ready to do that. I think that what some people are expecting, and I'm included in that, is let's buy a piece of property and give it to a developer and build 25 units of housing. And I know we won't be ready to do that if that's the right thing to do.
I'd
So
vote for that one.
you would vote for that one.
I absolutely.
Yeah, right. I agree. There's a lot of people who think we should be doing that, but we won't be doing that in January is my point. So we've got to take all of this into account. Anyway, just
Well,
Other
you know,
thoughts,
I
Patrick?
think the way to look at this is, let's assume we're gonna do big things, you know, and whether it's forcing the groups to do it or not, you know, I can guarantee you that the marketing group will, you know, and I'm sure the housing group is gonna get close. I mean, because they're working hard. And you know, and maybe we look at this as maybe the first year, whatever the number is, and I'm gonna use numbers for effect, you know, maybe we, instead of 30,000, we make it
80,000.
75,000. You know, and then the next year it's 50,000, and then the next year it's 25, and we leave it at that. So we kind of wean people off, because you know, if you look at the stuff that we granted last year, a lot of it we didn't need to, and I think a lot of it we granted because people are expecting us to have the money for them instead of doing the work themselves to get the money they need. You know, and so I think there's this will be a good thing, because it'll be training everybody to do what they should be doing. Instead of just us being this pot of money that they can go and say, oh, we want to do this. Let's go to the EDC. They'll give us money. You know, and I think that's been the problem. So that's why I think you're taking the big approach.
Right.
Is what's so good, because now we're going to be doing big things to make big change. But we may have to wean them off, you know, and that's maybe a function of while we wait for big proposals.
Other comments?
Just that I like that idea to titrate down. I like the idea of going a little bit higher and then slowly year over year. going
We
down
need
a
them
little
off.
bit.
A 3-year transition.
Yeah, yeah.
I also think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I do
And
too.
that'll give the big group, the big working groups, time to put together
Yeah.
big ideas.
Look, guys, I'm coming for you for $60 million for a new high school. All right, it's gonna be great. Don't worry. Don't worry. Next 4 years, we're booked.
I want to say that I just, as one voice that has been loud, I feel, and I mean, that's a bad thing, but loud and consistent about not liking the small grants. If we don't do the big grants, I would strongly support the small ones. Because what we're doing, every single grant we've made, I think, even ones that I wasn't all that enthusiastic about, every single one I think has helped Woodstock.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
I have
And-
no doubt about it.
Right,
Yeah.
and this money is for the most part not being paid by Woodstock, it's being paid by visitors, and it clearly has no effect on the visitors coming. So yes, this process will put pressure on people who just think of us as a pot of money. And the purpose of this is not to convince them that we're not a pot of money. The purpose of this is for us to do big things.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we have an obligation to do that. Now, tonight is the first meeting that I can remember where basically everything that we've done in the last month has been done by subgroups of people.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. It's real. I'm not saying that there has been no work done by subgroups of people in the past, but tonight, everything that was done in 5 different areas was done by subgroups of people who are working on working groups and so forth. This is fantastic. The next stage of this is to get even more serious about that and to say that our task is to get to these big proposals. And I don't think we'll get to it by January. I think the transition addresses that. And actually, to be honest, I would make the transition bigger than what you said. I would do 100,000 in January.
100,000 for what, John?
For
community funds.
I would have a grant process. I would have a grant process for $100,000 of grants that met our general economic and community development guidelines, the same guidelines we used in March of this year, the same process, the same
So you're
guidelines
saying instead of 30,000, you'd be in favor of 100.
in year 1 this year
Okay.
With the idea of weaning it down, Joe.
to 30 or 40 or 40 to 30 to 50 in year 3.
Define that, winning and down. What do you mean by that?
Year 1, we do 100,000 for the community fund. You know, then the next year, we maybe do 60,000.
Why would we do that?
Because the idea then is that point, the big working groups for the 5 priorities will come up with their big proposals.
And they'll need the money. Yeah,
And they'll need the money, exactly. And then in year 3, we might make it 30,000. And again, with the idea that the big working groups, and that may happen, because I can tell you right now, for the marketing group, we're gonna put together a 3-year proposal.
Right.
That we're gonna say we want X amount of money per year for the next 3 years. And I think that's the whole idea of what John's thinking. The housing group will do that, the childcare group will do that, and so when we get to a point, we'll have a small pot of money for the community fund, but until we do that, we're gonna have money sitting there that we might as well use.
And people will be upset, right? I think rightly so, that we're not spending our money. And
Right.
I would respectfully suggest that I would give John's ideas some second thoughts. I mean, if we start off with 100,000, some people might get disappointed the second year around, thinking there's gonna be money available. I would say, in my opinion, let's keep it low, like 35,000. And that 70 or 65,000, we can tuck aside for the bigger project in year 2 or 3 or whatever. I don't, the way I think about it, I wouldn't start off big and start chopping it down. It would, I think, disappoint some people. I mean, here we are, the first year doling out $100,000, second year, people come in with just as a good of idea or a need for it, but no, we're gonna save it and put it over there, thinking that it's gonna be available because it was available the year before.
Joe, that's gonna happen anyway, Joe, because
But I think,
if we cut it,
Wait, Todd, hold on a second, because you were saying Todd first and then Patrick.
I think, Joe, it's interesting. I was thinking about this earlier because John said percentage and I'm like, oh, we said 30. And maybe the way that helped you and I remember the conversation.
Yeah.
Right? But maybe a percentage of a max delta of what the funding availability is might be a better way, because that's a number that changes, and saying 30 when we might have 360, or maybe we find a percentage. Right? And
Well,
then let's say,
keep in mind though, what this is for is these unexpected pop-ups.
yeah, exactly.
And I mean,
I'm thinking a range. I'm thinking a range of a percentage that's the mid road's 30, but if we don't get good proposals, we're not putting ourselves in a box where we're saying we're not willing to do it.
Yeah. I think
you're saying the same thing. I mean, whether you do it as a percentage or you do it as a dollar value, the real question is, do we cut them off at the knees on the first year? So next year it's 10% or 30% or whatever the number is, and then that's what it always is. Or do we say next year it's going to be $100,000, the second year it's going to be 60, the last year it's going to be the 10% or whatever, the 30,000, and you're weaning them off, but you're letting them know you're doing that. I mean, it's not like we're not going to say, hey, this is what's happening. I mean, we're probably the most out there, transparent group.
I think procedurally, I think using the percentage as a number that can be variable based on the receipts might be just better felt with the public than just putting a fixed number.
I think that's a good point.
What I mean.
But staying with Joe's point, just sorry, and then Larry, staying with Joe's point for 1 second about them expecting things. We've had 2 years in a row where people expect that we're going to give $300,000 because that's what we've given, exactly 300,000 2 years ago, and sorry, actually 370 in 20 prior to COVID, I think, and then 300 this past January. So what the idea of moving, so I think going from 300 to 30, Joe, is if we're completely transparent about it, I think that would be more upsetting than saying, look, we're heading towards 10%, which is 30 or 35 or 40. We're heading towards 10%. But and the reason is because we want to put money in years 2 and 3 and 4. We want to save money for big proposals. They're not there yet, but we're expecting them to come in the coming year.
Yeah, Joe, but I think you're forgetting that, a lot of those grants that we gave last year would have fallen into one of those big buckets.
No.
Anyway.
No, hold on. We got to be careful when we say the words big buckets, because I think the proposals are proposals that fall into the buckets and are big. It's the proposal that's big, not the bucket.
Right.
The only if we say that a big proposal is $50,000 or more, there was only one proposal out of.
Yeah, I
50.
I know, but I mean,
So-
it's phonetics. I think it amounts to the same thing. I just think if we are serious about tackling some of these bigger needs, as we have been going down that road right now,
Right.
I think we'd have to be a little bit more careful about how we spend our money on other things.
Okay, all
And
right.
starting off at $100,000, in my opinion, and then put with the understanding that we're gonna chop it down year 2 and year 3, I think is a bad idea.
We're wasting too much money.
That's my opinion.
Okay, I got it. Larry?
I get, John, I think you and Patrick have really covered what I was gonna say. It's, I don't think, especially in year 1, when we don't have big proposals from the 5 groups, that I would feel comfortable having, let's say, Vale Field come in and ask for, $30,000 and saying no to them because we think we're gonna have big projects coming up in the next 2 or 3 years, so we're not gonna give you that money. I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, I understand.
At-
Larry. I think it's just a question
the-
of budgeting myself. That's the way I think I would do it.
Marion?
I didn't hear what you said.
But Joe was just saying that he thinks it's more important what he had said, or, he disagrees. He
I think
thinks,
it's a question of budgeting, Larry, and being careful about how we spend the money.
Marion?
So I think this is a kind of a clarifying point. For me, I realized I was getting, I was sort of mixing a couple of things up. And we talked about these buckets like childcare, like marketing. And the clarifying point is that, and you tried to emphasize this, but I'm just going to say it again for myself and everybody, which is that just because we have the bucket of childcare and we say we're going to take a big proposal, if someone in the community has a $5,000 grant request for childcare, that doesn't fit. Because what we're saying is we want one big proposal. So,
Or two,
or two,
we
but
want big
what I'm
proposals.
saying is the way we're determined, kind of want to clarify, right? The way we're saying we want to determine these working groups are going to develop proposals in these areas. We are not then saying, if we've allocated 100,000 for childcare, that doesn't mean that could be split among 10 community grants. That means we want one big grant. Or
Well,
does it?
here's how I would define big. I would define big actually as impact,
Yeah, absolutely.
not cost.
Right.
And now, since we've given out 199 grants, by my count, it's pretty hard to say that any of them have had a defined impact. Marketing, I think, implicitly has, but it's been very hard for us to measure it. It's getting easier for us to measure it. I don't think any of the others have had an impact.
Flower.
I'm sorry,
flower
no,
basket,
have had a
man.
big impact, have changed the course of, So what I would say is that we want to focus our efforts on generating big proposals that will have a big impact in 5 areas. If someone came to us with a $1,000 proposal that would have a big impact to increase childcare,
Yeah.
of course we would grant it. And so, but really, I guess what I'm saying is that I think that we should focus our efforts on creating proposals that will likely have big impact.
So I guess.
And then the community fund is for proposals that will have small impact.
I get, that was the clarifying thing, because I think we're kind of mixing things up. I was trying to get clarity on what's the community fund.
Right.
And what's our big proposals. And we were talking about some of the proposals in the past that would have fallen under these categories. And what you're saying is they don't or do, or that's where I'm. Yeah.
For example, if the housing group came forward with a pilot test for $30,000 for an ADU program, I'm not sure I would approve that in the future. I approved it this year because we didn't agree because we were giving grants that were having small impact. I want a proposal from housing that's going to build 25 units of housing, or is going to show if they came in and said, look, we've got 40 people signed up for ADUs. They're ready to go. if we give them a $10,000 incentive. I'll vote for
Done.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the hard part about this is not going to be deciding to give the money. And it turns out that the hard part about this isn't getting the money. It's just flowing in. The hard part is coming up with the big proposals. And we have 200 examples of things that aren't that. So what do we need to do to force ourselves to do
Yeah,
that?
but John, in my mind, we know that we're gonna be spending this money at some point. We know that those expenditures are lurking down the road.
Yeah.
So why not be prepared for it as best as we can? I think that's my point I'm trying to get to.
I think Joe's, to make it really simple, that it's save the money for the big impact things when they arrive.
Right.
Or do. a
Because you know
bigger-
they will arrive. It's not an if, they will arrive.
Okay, but let me finish, Joe.
Yeah,
I'm trying to make it clear so everyone
yeah,
understands.
yeah.
Or we use more money for community and weed it down, knowing that the big proposal is coming. So Joe's saying we'll do better if we save the money now because we know they're coming, versus spend some of it now, that's gonna give us less when the big ones come. Would that be fair, Joe?
That's essentially it. I mean, you know that they're gonna be there.
Yep.
That it isn't an if it does come, when it does come. We
Yeah.
know we're gonna need it at some point down the road. So why not be prepared for it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, Todd.
Yeah, Marion, I think to your point, it is confusing because what we're saying is before, like when I started here, the procedures and what we were trying to do, it wasn't as defined as we would like, and we're still working on it, right? So things like fireworks, I'd like to use that one because everyone knows I hate paying for fireworks, even though they're beautiful. I would pay for them as a private citizen, but no one's ever asked. So this is so the town doesn't hate what we're doing,
Right.
and they can get the things that they're used to while we do things that are going to make the town a better place for everyone, right? So I think defining it, I think what you're struggling with, which I'm struggling with this. Defining it's difficult because I don't know what cockamamie idea someone's going to have that probably would have gotten done for the last 10 years. And if we don't do it this year, a lot of people are going to be super angry and it's cost $2,500 and we should probably just do it. But there needs to be some cap on that, right? So I think like the mise en scène of this is like murky waters. And I don't know, Joe says one thing like, oh yeah, we just need to be doing things that have a higher impact, like John said, right? But in knowing that we want to define who we are, what we're doing, have this on the record, have people really have an understanding, we certainly have to have parameters. So I'm just saying, Marion, I'm as confused as you are, but I think it's all in the right direction.
All right. I think there's only one, I think Joe's approach is absolutely correct, and it's mathematically correct. Every dollar we don't spend on things that aren't big impact
In the
proposals
five
in the 5 areas is a dollar that won't get spent on it or will have to wait. There's only one reason for transitioning to that lowest amount, whether it's 10% or 30,000 or whatever the number is, more slowly. And that is, I believe, I don't agree with only one thing that Joe said, which is we know the big proposals are coming. Let's just talk about who the we are. I think that there are there are 9 people on the EDC. I think that I know that of the 9 on the EDC, there are fewer than 9 who believe with certainty that the big proposals are coming. Because
What is, John?
that there are fewer than 9 people who are certain that the big proposals are coming. I'm not certain that the big proposals are coming. It's not because we're not going to try, and it's not because we're not on the path towards them, but it's really, really hard.
Yeah, can't be half-baked.
And more importantly than that, I feel reasonably confident that the only potential people who are sure that the big proposals are coming are the 9 of us. That everyone else is less sure than the 9 of us. So I think we have a losing argument to tell someone, we know that the big proposals are coming. If I was arguing against it, say, well, how many proposals have you done so far? Well, we've done 199. And how many over how many years? 8 years, 6 years. And how many of those have fit your criteria? Well, none.
One.
None or one. We can debate.
John, you're contradicting yourself.
No, what I'm saying is that I think that because I think what we have to say to people is we are committed to the big proposals coming. We are we have now organized ourselves. We've heard everyone. We
Of course
agree. We
We're
are
all
organized.
working towards it.
We are working towards it. We can now demonstrate that
So
meeting.
our work is not gonna be for naught, but you just said a few minutes ago, if I remember correctly, if next year or the year after, we should propose giving a contractor a chunk of money and building a dormitory, for lack of a better expression, I would be in favor of that. Well, I mean, we know that at some point, something like that is going to be coming down the road. And
No,
my
no,
position is,
I don't know that.
simply, why not, as responsible people taking care of the taxpayers' dollars, be prepared for that?
Joe,
That's
I
what
do.
I'm saying.
I understand. I disagree with you that I know that it's coming down the road.
Right.
All
We
right,
have known about the need for 10 years.
yeah,
And we have made absolutely no progress. There's not a single person who's made any progress. We haven't made any progress. The proposals our housing group has put forward, which are fantastic from where we started from, which was nothing, haven't put it forward. I'm not saying, I'm not certain.
Yeah.
What I'm more certain of is we can't convince everyone else that they should be certain that the proposals are coming. That's the only
Because they don't know how complicated it is.
Yeah.
It's easier to.
These are all they're best laid
I
plans.
think
and
the
We're
more
working
you
hard
know
for
about
best
it,
laid
the less
plans.
confident you get, but I think it's.
I also think the money that we would spend, if we're talking about, 1.5, let's say if we're talking about $360,000 a year, we're talking about $1.8 million over 5 years. We're talking about a difference of the 1.8, we're talking about a difference of about 100,000 extra that we would give, actually $140,000 extra out of what it's 8%. It's a small difference. Anyway, that's the only reason for not doing what you're saying, Joe, is that you may agree or disagree with that reason, but I think there's no other reason. Otherwise, you're right.
Well, and to John's point for a second, the big proposals, they're hard from a couple of points of view. One is you need people who think big and who have the time and the energy to dig in and find it. I mean,
That's the constraint.
right. And I'll use me as an example. I knew from when I got on the EDC that I wanted to deal with the marketing thing because I know that everything they did was small and I was not thinking small. I came in with the idea I'm going to think big, and which is what I've done. But you need that group of people or person who's going to drive that for the big proposals. And the question is, how long is it going to take for that to happen? And in the meantime, if we want to tell the community we're not spending our money, because I've been here 9 years, and when they started the 1% tax, there was a couple of years where people were bitching and moaning that what are they doing with the money? They're not doing anything with the money. So I think the weaning them down a little bit while we push for the big programs, I think that's a better way to go. But I don't think in the long term of it, it's that much money.
All right, I think the points of view have clarified, are clear, right?
We all agree we should do this. We just don't know the range, right?
Okay, so, but
What approach?
let's just have it. If you had to vote, if you were closer to moving to some end result tonight, moving to some end result in January, whether it's 30,000 or 10%, I think roughly equivalent, or whether you would rather have a 3-year transition that had a meaningful difference between year 1 and year 3. Let's just say 175, 30 or 175, 10%, something like that.
Right.
Which would you vote for? Just without explaining, just which would you be in favor of? Or can you either one or you can't decide? I'll just go through here. Mary?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
So there's-
Patrick?
Wean them off.
Wean them off. Joe? Go to.
well, I think it's obvious. I mean, Larry,
No, I know what.
Larry and Todd just a few minutes ago reported that they have a survey and they had, I don't know how many, 85 respondents. People know that we are doing something that was never done before.
Yeah, but
Joe, this is the
Well,
yes or no
anyway,
part.
all right, you know
You're
what I
voting.
am.
Yeah, we know you were, okay, Larry?
Oh, I like the starting high and tapering off.
Todd?
I'd like to taper with a range.
Oh, okay. Is that, okay, and Mika?
Yeah, same. I'd like to taper down.
Okay, so I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tapers, a not sure and a not taper. So I think we're tapering. Okay, now, the reason I'm trying to bring this to a head here is because if we want to go ahead in January, we need to start the process up now.
Yeah.
Now, if we want to go ahead in February, we could probably have 1 more month. How do we,
January.
January.
Yeah, because what happens is, once we do these, we lose a month or two, and then the programs don't start until, third month. And then all of a sudden, we're rushing and I think the sooner we can do it and get the money out there, the better.
and what about, yeah, okay. It's 5 of 8, so I want people to think about, so I'll take some steps with each of you to kind of restart the process. Should we fundamentally repeat the process from last year? Anyone
Yes.
have an objection to that?
No,
Seems good.
I think that's good.
I think what I'm doing, by the way, since we have to move quickly, I'm deferring then the debate about this, should the community loan fund be something else? It's, it looks like it's going to be around $100,000. We won't announce it until, we'll announce the amount after the next meeting, so we can discuss what the amount is. But we'll get ready to announce the day after the EDC meeting, and so forth. So we'll be prepared for that. I give some thought to when we consider the big proposals and whether we consider them at once, if we have a deadline for ourselves, like I'm making this up, July 1, or we do it on a rolling basis, which I think is not a great idea. But and I think waiting till January of 2024 is also not a good idea. So give some thought to that, because
I guarantee you, we will have a market.
I know the marketing ones will, but
Is there, I know that, just thinking about that, for childcare, is there anything timely around?
there could be, so does there need to, right, are there sort of a sense of urgency on some of these things? I can imagine, marketing and housing probably a little, could be 1 month or maybe 2 months or 3 months later. I know we need to continue it. Childcare could come up in October, we have a plan, or November, and we need to do it immediately. Give that some thought. We don't have to answer that tonight. I think any of these options have pros and cons. I think, by the way, a principle we probably should follow is, because it's going to be so hard to get big proposals, we should do everything we can to approve big proposals.
Yes.
Even if what that means is the early ones get approved at the expense of the later ones. Because the money will come in again. You know what I mean? So the faster, the early ones probably get favored, whether that's the right precise priority or not. Possibly. I'm not making that, it's not a decision. We'll talk about this at the next meeting. So, okay. So just to summarize what we discussed here, we're going to go ahead with a community grant process that's significantly smaller than 100,000. And starting and we'll have that process in January. We'll launch it on the first week in October. Joe and Larry and I are going to work on the loan fund and exploring that with Bradford and the lawyers and so forth. We've approved the ADU thing. We're going to hear what the pickleball thing is.
And John, if there's a possibility of getting the loan fund set up for January, that would be an awesome thing. So
Right, so that it was ready when.
right, because if we cut
Doing it at the same time, you mean?
right, because if this way, if we're cutting it to 100,000, say as a number,
Plus a loan fund.
plus a loan fund, it's gonna,
So-
Solve the problem.
So Larry and Joe, let's, the three of us, try to assess, and report back to the group in October whether we think that that's feasible based on a meeting with Bradford soon and does that make sense, Larry?
Just let me know, John, I'll make time.
All right, well, actually, Larry, you have in fact been taking the lead on this and pushing me. So since there's no members of the community here to hear this, will you chair this team? It's not really a working group because we're just exploring one idea, but will you just sort of chair this group and get Joe and I to coordinate with you and so forth? Okay. There is actually, Joe, Larry, I'm gonna suggest that we have the startup Woodstock discussion at the next meeting. Is that too late? That's too
Yeah,
late, right?
yeah, I just need one, I need a quick vote.
Yeah, go ahead. We didn't put this on the agenda, but there's no one else here, so.
No, it is on the agenda.
Oh, it is on the agenda, yes, so we can, okay, perfect. Go ahead, Larry.
Larry.
Okay, briefly, we've had some starts and stops on the startup Woodstock. As you recall, the EDC granted us $10,000 towards this project, and we have $20,000 of private money, and we're hopeful of more. What the little bit of a problem became, the EDC really isn't, I put it in as an EDC project, but the EDC really isn't set up to run this competition, and is also not set up to go out and really solicit more funds to fund the competition. So what we, just so that it's clear, we would like to have a separate organization, 501c organization. I've talked to Jill Davies about making it through the Woodstock Community Trust that would then run this whole program. It would be called Startup Woodstock probably, or startupwoodstock.org, rather than having it as an EDC thing. And when I re-looked at the application, I thought there was an ambiguity there. So I just like a vote to allow this to be run by a separate organization, presumably called Startup Woodstock.
And that organization would include, I think we should put some specific names to it, of people. It would-
The people on it so far are John, myself, Cliff Johnson, and Stuart Matthews.
Oh, man.
So I think we should just say that that's the group that we're requesting to vote.
We also have, I think it's 8 judges. We have 8 judges who would not be, I guess, would not be in the organization, but will be doing, it's not, in other words, we're not changing the process at all.
What is
also
the motion, what's the motion looking for specifically about? Just to move to this organization?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear because the application was a little ambiguous. It was an EDC application, but EDC isn't really going to run this program. It isn't going to run this campaign.
I think just to be technical about this, when a grantee applies for a grant and we give them the grant, we allow the grantee to operate independently and to make all the decisions with one caveat, which is that the money that they ask for to be reimbursed from us has to be used for the purpose for which it was granted. And so that's the only obligation we impose on a grantee. What Larry, I think, is asking for is to make this group of 4 the grantee, rather than the EDC being the grantee. They're still subject, we won't give that group of 4 the $10,000 unless they use it for the precise purpose of the grant. It's really an administrative, it's who's responsible for that.
John, do you know the language that you should, can you present the motion with the proper language?
Okay, well, I would move that the grantee be changed from the EDC to a private group of 4 citizens, Larry Niles, John Spector, Cliff Johnson, and Stuart Matthews, who will administer the grants funds according to the same requirements for which the funds were granted.
Through a nonprofit organization.
I move.
Through a
for
month. All
second.
right, so Marion has moved that. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Well, Marion should ask.
Yes, you asked your question.
Well, I just, it just jumped out at me, the obvious thing.
It's all
that
white men.
That it's all men.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, I know that there's the population of Woodstock, but certainly,
So the group of judges, so the status that we're at is that we have recruited a group of 8 or 9 judges who are diverse in multiple ways, geographically, gender-wise, and by occupation.
great, that's.
However, the group of judges we've delayed this project so long that it's not 100% certain that that same exact group will agree, but I think most will. And I think that, Larry, we can commit to making sure that the group is as diverse as the EDC was, which is the group that would originally be the granting group. Is that a reasonable?
Yeah, it was just.
Yeah.
Jumped out at me.
I think yeah, mechanically, it's actually the judges that are going to,
Irrelevant.
that are gonna be making the decisions. It's this group that's setting up the administration. You're okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right, any other discussion? All right, the motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, Larry, you can keep operating. Phew. All right, and we have a motion to, is there any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
All right,
Second.
Todd got in there first, Marion, sorry. Seconded by Todd. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned.
Thanks for your
Thank
time,
you.
everybody. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks, Nikki.
Take care.
These